morning, everyone. I hope you're well this Monday morning and it's not too cold where you are. My name's Rose-Davidson from Rose-Davidson.com, and today we're going to be speaking about how to create a PowerPoint presentation that will absolutely rock your audience. Now, I'm hoping that you've brought pen and paper with you to take notes, because it's going to be a full-on. I've scheduled 90 minutes, but I'm hoping that it doesn't go that long, because 90 minutes is a long time to be sitting in one place without going and grabbing a cup of tea or coffee. Good morning, Susie. Thank you for joining me. So if I don't get to the chat during the workshop, please be assured that I will get to you after the broadcast is finished, and I'll answer all your questions then. So I don't really like to be interrupted during the things, during what I'm doing, because it's a little bit distracting. But if you've got something pressing to ask, yes, please do so. And but if I don't get to it straight away, yeah, I will answer it after I'm finished. Anyway, so let's make a start. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what makes a PowerPoint presentation effective, and why are some PowerPoint presentations described as being highly engaging and others are known to be a death by PowerPoint? So those ones where you sit and they presenters reading off the slide or reading off notes, and it's really boring. So there is a science behind PowerPoints, believe it or not. There's actually two scientific principles. And the first one is that the brain can only absorb so much information at one time, and it's called that the human brain has limited cognitive abilities. So yeah, as I said, the brain can only absorb so much information at once. So the more you have on your slide, the more information your audience has to absorb. So it's just better to leave them with limited text, and use graphics, which brings me to the second scientific principle. Is using graphics is easier for your audience to digest, because we have like 70,000 thoughts or something a day, some stupid amount. So if you see something, it's easier to digest the information or the meaning behind it. Your brain will absorb the information by looking at a graphic or a visual of some type, rather than having to read through a lot of text on a screen. So when you are creating your PowerPoint presentation, incorporate a lot of images to illustrate what you're verbally trying to say. We'll skip past about me. Basically, I started my own business in 2015, providing admin services. I'd been doing it for over 35 years, and I thought, yeah, and I was sick of the corporate world. So I decided to go out on my own, and I was offering admin services to female entrepreneurs, mainly startups. But after 35 years of doing admin work, I was tired of it, and I wasn't fulfilled any longer. But I am, however, fulfilled by creating PowerPoint presentations and promotional videos. I love doing it because I'm a creative person. So I switched my business around in 2020, just before the pandemic hit in March. And it was an opportune time, because little did I know about the pandemic, but now I offer PowerPoint presentations and promotional videos to speakers and coaches and so forth. Sorry. So I've been doing that now since March last year, and then I started my podcast in July, because I noticed a lot of people were business owners were struggling a lot. So I thought, well, why don't I get other business owners in to give some hints and tips? And it's proved to be quite popular. I actually got an email from Amazon inviting me onto the platform. So there you go. That was pretty cool, I thought. So I've presented my own personal story to two global online summits this year, and I'm a published co-author of a #1 international bestseller and it was popular in 8 countries. And I do 2 live streams a week, and one's the Healing Through Love show, and the other one is Survivors TV. So that's just me in a nutshell. So most of you will probably have to create a PowerPoint presentation sometime in your career, or give some sort of a presentation sometime in your career, and it's something that you need to learn how to do, because with the online space now, doing presentations, PowerPoint sitting behind your message is a great idea. How to get visuals, explain visually what you're trying to promote to your audience. So you need to, and hopefully this will teach you how to create a PowerPoint presentation that will grab your audience's attention and actually keep them engaged. So what really is a bad presentation is too much text on the slide. So, your presentation really, it shouldn't be remembered. It should be, it should fall into the background to support you. What is important is that they remember who you are and they don't remember your slides so much, if that makes sense. I guess, what am I trying to say? If you use lots of text on a screen, or you have ugly photos, or it's poorly designed, it detracts from your message, and so it undermines your credibility as a professional or a speaker. So knowing how to use PowerPoint is effectively is important, and so you need to remember to hit the goals that you've set for yourself with the presentation, and deliver it effectively, and don't, as I said, use graphics and not a lot of text on your screen. And don't use bullet points. Bullet points, no, you can have them like I've got them. Bullet points are a bit old-fashioned these days. So you need to make your audience first in the presentation. It's not about you, the presenter, it's about your audience. So you need to structure your presentation around what your audience's expectations are. So you need to ask yourself, why would they be watching your presentation in the first place? And how much knowledge and experience do they have on the subject that you're presenting? And how do they feel about your primary message that you're going to be delivering? And what possible questions might they have along the way? So don't focus on your own ideas. It's often good in the registration process to have a survey there to find out what your audience is most interested in, and you can structure your presentation around what your audience's needs are, and their expectations, obviously, of what you've written. So, as I said, a survey is a great way to do this. You could, after they've registered, you could have, questions after the registration, or you could, because you've grabbed their email address, you could, send a survey out then. You need to find out within that survey what are their knowledge gaps that they have, and so you need to be prepared to fill those gaps in. So again, the survey thing is really great. And do they have anything against the message that you're trying to deliver? Does it suit? It's no good trying to deliver a subject on atheism if you're going to be talking to a group of churchgoers. It's apples and oranges basically. And be prepared to answer questions along the way. It's important that you can do that. Personally, I prefer to answer at the end, but if you've fulfilled the questions in the first 3 points of this slide, then the Q&A at the end will probably be a lot more advanced in the questions that they're asking. So to do that, you can find existing stories, so stories of your own. So use metaphors and stories. Use a story that is aligned to your presentation. So if you're presenting to your work colleagues, on customer service, and you've had a bad experience, relate that story. It's no good trying to relate a story on how to use Photoshop to a bunch of graphic designers, for instance. Get inspiration from Hollywood. Your story doesn't have to be factual. Your audience doesn't need to know that either. But the point being is that, find a movie that is aligned to your message and pick bits and pieces out of it that, you can relate and put it into a story to fit what you're trying to say. And it's always a great idea to try and create a storyboard post-it notes on the wall somewhere, and how you're going to structure your presentation, what stories you're going to tell, and how that aligns with everything that you're trying to say. So the storyboard's an important part, actually, so it helps you with the layout of the whole presentation. There we go. Templates. People get really hung up on templates. Now you can grab templates from PowerPoint itself, and there's a design function within the program that they'll redesign your slide for you with graphics if you've got graphics on your slide. However, it's better if you do it yourself. I mean, sometimes using PowerPoint's a really great thing, but it's not yours, it's someone else's. So you need to find compelling images of your own to enhance your presentation. Don't get stuck on templates. Really, it's no big deal. If you've set it out properly, and it's not wordy, it's got the graphic that aligns to your message, then all these templates. I mean, sure, you can go get a template and it's already got the animations already in it, and but if you're not confident in using PowerPoint, then I would just use what's available to you, because you need to make your presentation as unique as possible, and avoid using the most common stock images, because let's face it, they've been seen a million times. Try and find something that's unique to you and unique to your presentation. And make sure that it's readable. Don't make the font so small that people at the back of the room can't see it. It's got to be readable to everybody. It's not so bad online, but if you're giving an in-person presentation, make sure that they're not having to squint to read what's going on. And as I said about your imagery, make sure that it's interesting and it's aligns with what the story that you're trying to tell, or the message that you're trying to convey. And try not to try to break the monotony of your slides with graphics, because as I said previously, the brain can only absorb so much information. So, and you don't want your audience reading from the slides when they should be listening to what you're having to say. So you need to practice the timing and delivery of your presentation, and recording a presentation for practice and for review is always a great idea. So once you've got the visuals and the text of your presentation out of the road and it's all ready to go, it's time to practice now. And this is, you do this for several reasons. And first, it is because you want to make sure that your presentation fits within your allotted time. So, if you've only allowed an hour, make sure that it doesn't go over, because a lot of people don't like to be kept over time. There may be speakers after you, so you're cutting into their time. So, Practice all the time. Going over time can also affect the time, the timing of breaks, and consider the costs if you're tempted to make your presentation longer than it should be, if you want to skip practicing altogether. And you don't want this to be the speaker that everyone ends up resenting because you've kept them back longer than they wanted to, they couldn't get their coffee break, or the next speaker has to shorten their presentation because you were too long. And make sure you get feedback from your presentation. Practice showing it to somebody. So even if you have to record it first and then show it to someone to get some feedback, really good idea. Perfect idea. And you could ask questions like, do you speak at a good enough pace to be understood, which means, you're speaking too quickly, or are you, using a monotone voice, or are you just totally boring, and make sure that you use tonalities, and, do you appear confident when you're giving your presentation. You can even show videos throughout your presentation, and I do encourage that you do include video within your PowerPoint slides. And, should you be speaking slower? Should you be speaking louder? Should your PowerPoint presentation, does it need to be more engaging? Do I move my hands too much? Don't I move them enough? Am I walking too much? All those things. It's important to keep your audience engaged, but not to the point where they are distracted by what it is ever that you're doing. So having compelling content is really great, but you need to make sure that it looks polished. So you need to make sure that everything's properly aligned. And it doesn't really matter if you, left margin or right margin or centered. It doesn't matter as long as it looks uniform all the way through. And this, I guess, brings balance to the whole thing, and make sure that you do it one slide at a time. So you can do that by going into the format tab up the top and select align, and then there are options up there to align your text or your images even. Embedded fonts. It's possible that the equipment that you'll be using on presentation day won't be the same as yours, and they might not have the same fonts on the particular laptop or whatever that you'll be using on the day. So make sure that you've embedded the chosen fonts within your presentation. I mean, if the font doesn't really matter, that's okay, but if it's it's important to the overall presentation, then make sure that you embed them. And to do this, you go to the File tab up the top and click on Options, and then when the Options menu is launched, click the Save option from the menu on the left, and scroll down until you see the checkbox marked Embed Fonts into the file, and then check this box, and then choose the type of embedding that you want, and this will ensure that when you open your presentation in the new machine, that it will be exactly as you designed it. The font won't be different, so you won't get a surprise. It's also a good idea too to export your slides as a PDF or as a JPEG, because there may be software or hardware problems in the place where you're going to be giving your presentation, and it will just help you in the long run, because in your PowerPoint slides won't be disjointed, they won't be displayed incorrectly. And also remember to run through your cues. So when you're presenting, you'll know that from time to time, you'll need to click the slide to change to something else. So it's usually a word or a phrase or some sort of a timing cue that will, tell you to change to the next slide. So before you open up your PowerPoint presentation, you need to address these things so that you're fully prepared. You firstly, obviously need to know your stuff. So it's, presentation is not just about your slide deck, obviously. It's about the message that you want to get across to your audience. So before filling any stats, facts and figures, think about the narrative that will be discussed and why and in which order you want to discuss it. Remember to write it out. Start on a Word or a Google Doc and then storyboard or script the entire presentation to give you an idea on how the information is to be presented and how it will sort of flow and how viewers will be able to see it in sequence. And then remember to highlight what's important. A presentation covers the most crucial points only. So whatever you've been working on that will lead to this, like a paper or a work project or a new product design, it doesn't need to be shared in its entirety. So you just need to pick out all the important bits. So just pick out key points and then put the rest into an appendix that people can refer to if you're giving a handout, or they can refer to at the Q&A session at the end. You need to know your audience. So how you talk to a room full of medical professionals should be different from the way you address a room full of young entrepreneurs, for instance. So everything, in fact, is different. Your topic selection, the language that you use, the examples you give to illustrate points, and the little bits of humour included should be tailored specifically with your target audience in mind. And knowing your audience really well and their fears, their wants and their desires is the first step towards making your presentation that is persuasive. So you need to rehearse, obviously. You're never ready, even when you think you're ready. It's never too early to get used to the rhythm of your presentation and take note of the points that you want to emphasize. So while saying it out loud, you'll start to develop a feel for the material and notice that some things work really well while others don't, and you need to work around these and how you can make your presentation great. So how to make the most out of a PowerPoint? Well, as I've mentioned, your slide deck needs to be attractive in order to help you tell the story behind your presentation. So for starters, you need a unique, persuasive PowerPoint template that matches your industry or your topic. So the slide deck needs to be attractive. So throughout your persuasive presentation, use larger fonts to ensure that your presentation is readable. As I said earlier, don't make people squint. It's got to be readable from the people at the back if it's an in-person event or presentation. There's no good having people stand up and say, oh, I can't read the screen or whatever. So make sure that you get it right the first time. And make sure that you use proper alignment, as I've discussed, because it has to look balanced. It has to look pleasing to the eye. It's no good having, a first line in one level and then, your next line on a different level, and it's just all over the place and it's hard to read. You try to keep everything in line, which suits me because I'm a bit OCD that way. So it suits me, more to have it that way than all over the place. I think that's why I like PowerPoint so much, because it alleviates my OCD. So here's some things of what not to do. So sound effects, they're so old-fashioned. I don't know if you can remember back to your school days when PowerPoint first came out, and I'm guilty of this. I used to use them. I used to think it was a fantastic tool, putting sound effects every time I changed a slide, or I had a line of text come in and I'd have a whoosh noise or a bell ring or something. So yeah, don't do that anymore. It's distracting and it's frankly outdated. I mean, you can add audio to your presentation, or you can add music into it to inject some interest or to highlight an important point, but it's just something I'm just asking you to be aware of and to take care with. if you're going to insert audio, then make sure that you use something that really connects with the audience, and it's a fresh approach. Don't make it a boring, otherwise uninteresting piece of music, because the audience will just get bored and think, oh God, this is another horrible presentation. Don't use flashy slide transitions. Again, it's distracting, and use transitions, yes, but use them subtly, and you just need to take care how you do them, and beware of clip art. I guess it's better to use real graphics of real things rather than clip art, unless it's something your audience likes. If they like clip art and you know that for a fact, then please by all means use it. But if it's not something that your audience would easily entertain, then don't. It's up to you, but just make sure that if you're going to use it, make sure it aligns with your message and your audience. Don't read directly from your paper. That's a no-no. Obviously, because you're not going to be seen as an authority in your topic or subject if you're going to do that. Again, don't read directly from your note cards either. It's okay to keep note cards to keep you on point, to keep track of where you are up to, even to put your cues where you want to change slides. That's fine, but don't write them all out and read from them, because again, you want to keep your audience engaged. You don't want to be looking at your note card all the time, and you can't make eye contact or whatever with your audience. So that's really important. And don't read directly from your PowerPoint presentation either. Again, distracting. People can read. This is why they've been educated. For the ones that can't read, obviously you probably won't know that unless it's a presentation that you're giving to someone who can't read. But if I guess what I'm trying to say, if you spend your whole entire presentation reading from your paper, your note cards, or from the slides, then you're going to disengage your audience, because you're not spending time with them as you should be. So these are some tips on how to level up your skills. Use visual guides. So when designing your PowerPoint presentation, it helps to create a visual rhythm, and slides that have objects appropriately aligned and centered are naturally more likely to resonate with your audience. Use a few animations tastefully. So there's a bit of a bias one way. Some people think it's really great to have everything animated, others not so much. So but again, you need to align your slides with your message, with your audience. It's it's a partnership. And I mentioned previously, add a video. It takes a break from having to read, the all the text on the slides. It gives the audience a break from your voice as well, and it gives you a break so that if it's a very long presentation, then it gives you a break to soothe your voice slightly. If you're going to add charts and graphs, make sure that they're not messy like this one. It's going to be hard for people to understand. You need to make sure that the charts and graphs on your slides are easily understood. Build your infographics using Smart Art as well, which is a tab up the top in the menu bar. It's great. that you can actually build infographics within PowerPoint itself. You don't need to go to an outside source. And always use presenter view like I've done here. I've come across presentations where they've just opened up their slide deck and then they've got all the slides down showing down the side of the screen. Not a good look. It also makes the presentation larger on the screen as well, so you know people can get a better view of what you're trying to say. So from planning your hook to coming up with your metaphors and picking the right PowerPoint template, creating a presentation, it really does sound like a lot of work. But the good news is that if you do it right, none of that work will have gone to waste. In fact, it'll be a bigger waste of an opportunity if you just wing it through the presentation. So by spending enough time preparing your message, your content, your design and delivery of your presentation, you can be sure that your audience will appreciate and be persuaded by your final presentation. And next we're going to be discussing some simple PowerPoint animation tips and tricks. And there's 10. So bear with me, I'll run through them as quickly as I can. If you've got any questions, then please put them in the chat and I'll answer them later. So why use animations? So when you first start working with animations in PowerPoint, it's easy to overdo them on your slides. And this makes your presentation slow and often not enjoyable for the viewing audience. And despite having said that, animations in a PowerPoint presentation can be a great tool and has a lot of, and there is a purpose for them in some ways. So why use them? Well, they can be used to control the pace and delivery of your presentation, and they can enhance the appearance and the interest of your slides. And transitions between slides is also a good way. I mean, I love the way you can use morphing between slides. It's really great. I've only played with it a few times, but I've seen it done and I think it's absolutely amazing. So your animations, you know, need to are basically for aesthetic use, and it has to match your message as well as help to control the pace of your presentation. And animations, just for the sake of using animations, tend to become frustrating for your audience. And really, you don't want things sliding across the screen willy-nilly. So let's start with introducing the different types of animations in PowerPoint. And in essence, the type of animations can be summarized in this way. Transitions are a type of animation between slides. And you can view, there's a transitions pane up the top there. It's ideal if you want a noticeable transition between slides. So you can have, you know, the paper peel back, you can have the go across one. There are a lot of them there. It's like that. That's a really great animation, I thought. But anyway, so the idea is that it's noticeable between your slides. The second one is animations themselves, and these are actually on your slide. And your animations are used to, I guess, control the speed of your thing, of your presentation. So they're used between the thing and, you know, you can have the zoom, you can have zoom in, zoom out, you can have, you know, things coming from the side or from the top or from the bottom. It's your choice, but again, use it wisely. So the key lesson, I guess, is to understand when you need to use them, and if, to make your presentation exciting. And notice, a bit like if you're going to show a graph, it's easy to use animations in that. It highlights the points that you're trying to make. So in that way, animations are great. Again, another thing is timing and duration. So how does the pace feel? Are there sections of your presentation where there's too much animation, there's too little? As I explained, try not to use animations and transitions too much. Duration of animation is important. If you don't want it to be overly long and go really slow, or to go too quick that it's missed. So you just need to work on the timing of those. The general rule is to have fast animations, but not overly fast, unless you're animating something in which a slow animation makes more sense. So if you're presenting something brand new, for example, it's good to have a bit of a slow animation. And the rule of thumb is to use the timing of 0.5 of a second. And the best way to control your animations is to go through the presentation after you're done and only pay attention to your animations, and then ask yourself, is it great, too fast, too slow, and reviewing the presentation after you've completed everything makes it easier for you to estimate whether your choice of animation makes sense or it doesn't. So here is some basic work. So even when you're working on to make your animation subtle and effective, it can be a little bit easy to do. And the reasoning is that, people like movement. So the rules to follow is there's no point in adding many different transition animations that will confuse your audience. Try to keep it into one. These three usually are the most used, which is just appear on the screen. So when you click a button, the text will just appear. Fade means it comes in slowly, and zoom means it, really is in your face. So one of the most common ways to use animations to enhance your message, and let's look at how to add a simple animation to a PowerPoint. I think I did this. Take this one for example. Do you notice how the result in quarter 3 here was much higher than the others? So you could actually create an animation that would highlight that, something similar to that, or you could make that actually flash out at you. There's ways of doing that as well. And this is the transition. So these will tell you what kind of a transition you're going to have. So for example, if you'd like to jump to your conclusion slide in order to grab someone's attention, you can use a transition slide to do that, which you'll find the pane up the top there in the menu bar. So if you'd like to make an explanatory slide about, a recipe, for instance, instead of it displaying all the 5 steps all at once, do it one by one. You can use animations such as this one to, highlight data. Apple have it really done really well. They they use the less is more style of animation. So what you need to be careful of is that an emphasizing animation can quickly become overdone, and for example a spiral in or a curve up will remind your audience of poorly made television advertisements. And so the best way to pitch a new product is to work in a less is more fashion, as Apple do. So in order to make your animation a little bit more dramatic, play around with the timing and that's probably a helpful tip. And instead of using the traditional 0.5 seconds, go for 1 or even 2 seconds. That could have a bigger impact on your animation, and it's it just brings more dynamics to your slide. So use a transition to declutter and to simplify. So if you want to use a particularly busy slide, it often helps to use some exit animations to literally clean up your slide as you go along, so there's not a whole lot of text on your slide all at once. And you can actually remove individual elements on a slide by using exit animations. Grab attention with formatting text animations. So you can use the formatting text animations to emphasize text in your presentation, and there are a variety of options for this. There's the font color, the brush color, you can underline, a bold reveal, and grow with color, and these are all things that you can do. And that's it. It was very quick. I thank you for watching.